Hello, everyone. My guest today is Alessandra Lezama. She is the founder of a company called Tootris. It's a service provider that helps working parents access and secure affordable, quality childcare in real time. The company is available online or by mobile app and provides search by location, schedule, budget, and specific program distinctions, along with virtual tour capabilities, enrollment, and pay-as-you-go payment processing. Alessandra, you ready to take us to the top?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me here today.
You bet. So, first off, on the show, we usually feature exclusively SaaS founders, software as a service. You are applying software to something, but it's really a productized service. Would you agree?
Well, it's a SaaS product in and of itself, except for we have the back end as well. So we have an operations team that helps enable placements when parents and or providers are not connecting based on their requirements. But ultimately, this is 100% a SaaS application that is also accessible by mobile app.
That's right. And are parents the ones paying or childcare providers?
Neither. Isn't that a beautiful thing? It's a
Who pays?
hundred percent. Well, what we do is we work with employers to incorporate childcare as a benefit solutions. So employers pay us a fee, a subscription fee, so that we can incorporate a search based on the requirements of their workforce and ensure that we have inventory ready for placement of those children.
Okay.
So we're
So,
the
what does
benefits
an average
administrator.
employer pay you for that service?
$1997 a month per participating employee. So
And
it's
how
a
many employees participate on average per company?
the surveys typically come in at about 40% participation, and that's primarily because we're focused on the 0 to 5 age group. However, due to the pandemic and based on this remote learning, I'll call it opportunities for children to stay home and go to school. What we found is that Learning Hubs is a solution that we could extend to parents through extended childcare for school age children. So I guess bridging the gap currently through COVID-19, we're not only supporting 0 to 5 age groups, but also school age children.
So, Alessandra, the question I was getting at is how many seats or employees is the average company paying you for?
Well, that would depend, right, on the size of the company. So a
Well, that's
hundred.
why I'm asking the average.
All right. So on average, 60 seats per organization.
Okay, so this is sort of reaching middle market, potentially pushing sort of enterprise. This isn't for a small company with 10 people that have two people that need childcare.
This is for any organization that has a need for it, to be honest, because there aren't any minimum required seats. And currently, we are an early stage organization. So we've recently launched to market. Actually, when the first ordered, the lockdown in March, that's when we came out to market. So we have exponentially grown the scope of our services and the delivery of our services through the pandemic, and we're really scaling up in terms of the size organization that's adopting our solutions.
So how many unique employers now pay you for your service for one seat or 1,000?
If I had to just throw a dart, I would say around 100.
Okay. Wait, why do you have to throw a dart? I remember when I first found my first SaaS company, I was looking at new customers every single day. I knew the number like the back of my hand. I knew their families, their personalities, everything.
Yeah, well, it's a great problem to have because we're onboarding every day, all day long, and because we're also providing non-standard care and 24-hour care and weekend care, so we're adding subscriptions all day long.
Okay, but you think about 100 employers right now,
Correct.
and on average, one
Correct.
employer signs up for about 60 seats.
Correct. That would be on
Got
average, right? So we have it all over the map. You ask for an average, that would be the average.
it. So 100 companies times 60 seats on average would mean you feel you've got about 6,000 paid seats on your platform currently
Correct.
at 20 bucks on average per month,
Correct.
which would be about $120,000 a month in revenue.
Correct.
So you've gone from nothing to $120,000 a month in revenue over the past 12 months.
Now, granted, this is all yes, and so these are subscriptions that will activate over time. That means that as soon as the parent is active in our platform, they will start paying for that subscription. They don't start paying for the subscription in advance. So this is an on-demand platform, which is a beautiful type of solution for our employers because they can stretch like an accordion, right? So they can drop seats, they can add seats as those are warranted.
Yeah, the flexibility is important. So how many paid seats would you say you then have today?
I think we just did the math, didn't we, Nathan?
I think you just said, though, that they're not all onboarded.
Correct. They would be
So how many are onboarded?
probably half that.
Okay, got it. So you're signing up with an employer for maybe, they'll say, hey, Alessandra, we love the tool.
Yes.
We've got 30 that we need it for right now, but we'll maybe scale up to 60 over 12 months. They'll sign a contract for 60, but only pay for 30 seats until they onboard the full 60.
As they are using the service. Correct.
Got it. Fair enough. So you've got about 100 employers with 30 seats onboard on average today. So you're doing more like $50,000, $60,000 a month in revenue. Still super impressive. Nothing to that in a short amount of time.
Correct. And the commitment, though, that we have and the forecast that we have is that while employers come in through a survey that is a needs analysis, it can always scale to higher requirements, right? COVID-19 has thrown a wrench into every aspect of the business, and employers don't really know how to ascertain that as they're trying to recall their employees back to the office when needed and or to the different activities. And important to note is that I think that earlier in the lockdown, a lot of folks were ecstatic to go home and work remote. And I think that as we have evolved in this pandemic, there are more and more employees that recognize that their productivity may not be the same at home. So what we're seeing is that the need for childcare, while earlier in this process it was somewhat conservative, what we're seeing now is that the demand is returning to the market. And that's also good for the providers because a lot of the providers lost their enrollments, right? A lot of parents pulled out their children not knowing what was best for the little ones.
If you operate in a state like California, providers right now are not allowed to operate. You can't have people in a physical space.
That's
What
not
value
true.
are you?
That's not true. Childcare providers have the ability to operate and stay open and take in children. There are CDC recommendations and there's guidelines that have been published, right, by licensing by the Department of Social Services that add layers of scrutiny to hygiene and to the protocols, right? The social distancing and that. But providers are allowed to be open. They're essential.
Let me rephrase the question.
Okay.
There's a lot of parents that will not send their kids to a provider because the risk of that child picking up COVID in an asymptomatic way with 10 other kids at that same provider, even if they have all the precautions following, and then that child coming home and getting the parent sick is too high. They'd rather be more unproductive at work and keep their children home. Are you seeing that as a trend? And if so, how do you sort of pivot so that doesn't impact your business model in a negative way?
Well, I think that education has a lot to do with it and transparency of safety protocols. When we bring a provider under the Tootris scope of services and into our network, we have a relationship with that provider. So we have an ops team that vets the provider, has conversations with the provider, and we have an internal process by which we also qualify their protocols, and in this case, the safety and the the CDC recommended protocol. So if you go on our site, for example, and run a search for COVID safe programs, you'll see some that are tagged, right? They have a tag right on their profile to disclose the protocols that they are following. And I think that adds some sense of, peace of mind, if you will, for parents.
What geographies do you cover right now?
All of California with a high emphasis in San Diego because our proof of concept was San Diego. And This is where we have the most interaction with providers. So we have the entire scope of California lit. When we say lit, that means that we have uploaded the database of licensed providers. We are engaging with them to build the relationship and to verify them. We have a category in Tootris which is verified or unverified provider, and the verified provider goes through that workflow that I was referring to here.
I just did a search in LA. Where do I find who's verified that you have a relationship with?
So you would see the category when you click on their profile. You would see verified or unverified. If you go to the easier search, which is why I said the emphasis has been in San Diego. This is where we ran our proof of model, and this is where we've started. We're headquartered in San Diego, so where we have the most base of verified providers would be in San Diego, which would be a better
Okay,
search for you to see.
I see, I see. Okay, got it. So, I mean, how challenging is that for you to scale sort of in the US? I mean, I imagine it's a lot of work to scale these providers. I think maybe what you've done is legally, obviously, scraped a bunch of these sites from a database, put them in your software, but then you have to actually reach out and build a real relationship with them to start getting reviews, verify them,
Correct.
etc.
Correct. And that's absolutely true and correct. And there's two ways in which we do that. We could do that proactively, which means literally dialing for dollars, right? So we have a team of people that can dial for dollars. But we also do it through a very, proactive and aggressive, if you will, marketing campaign. We have an extraordinary team that has put in place a digital marketing strategy that reaches out through many Facebook channels where these groups of providers share best practices and things like that. So we're reaching out to them, and kind of like Yelp, where you get an invitation to claim your own profile and come in and validate all of the information that we have. We reach out to them as well. So both proactively and reactively or organically, we are creating that validation and that verification. Again, we are an early stage company, and so our first market was San Diego, and we've just recently turned up anything north of San Diego. So what you see there, the database, to your point, this is all publicly available information, all the licensed programs that we have in California, and with the exception of some, because we also do filters for sanctions on the records of these providers. So we will place that filter first, and then set aside that group of providers, because those do need to be handled in a kind of different workflow to ensure that we're only incorporating quality providers. And we're taking it to the next step. We're also looking at higher level credentials, because our viewpoint is that childcare should be an early childhood education process with play as you learn type curriculums. And so we are partnering with many different organizations like NAEYC and others to ensure that our providers are living up to the higher level of education standard.
Mm-hmm. Alessandra, before we wrap up, obviously the ultimate metric for you is how many kids do you have going through your system to daycare so their parents can focus at home and the child keeps learning and developing. We're recording here on Tuesday. Yesterday on Monday, how many children went to childcare because they're paying you to help them do that?
That's a tricky question. I'll say that we've helped 600 children since COVID started, not all which have paid to be connected with a provider.
I see.
And the reason
So
for
how
that
do
is,
you?
right, and the reason for that is we're a free platform. So in the end, our revenue model is to incorporate employers so that they in turn can bring in childcare as a service under their benefits platform. And for us, adoption is the name of the game. This is a gig economy, as you and I both understand it. And for us, the problem that we're trying to solve is to increase the inventory of childcare slots or quality childcare, because we have a severe deficit. Prior to COVID, we were at about 44% deficit in San Diego alone, very close, statewide. And so for us, adoption is key. And through the initial stages of COVID, we weren't out there selling to employers. We were actually making the platform available to parents and providers so that they could connect. So a lot of those enrollments, connections happen without us having a subscription-based agreement with employers that were looking to bring in that service as a benefit, if that makes any sense.
It does, Alessandra. Let's wrap here with the famous five. Number one, favorite business book.
Oh, strategic selling.
Number two, is there a CEO you're following or studying?
Um, is there a CEO that I follow? Interesting. Not particularly, to be honest.
No problem. Number 3, what's your favorite online tool for building the company?
Salesforce.
Number 4, how many hours of sleep do you get every night?
At least 6.5. I try 8, but I don't always get to 8.
And what's your situation, Alessandra? Married, single, kiddos?
I am single by design.
Single, but I love that. No kids running around?
I have a son, 20-year-old, so
Oh, good.
he's a USC student and hating life because he's home. So he's living, he's not living the dream right now, but he's learning how to navigate tough times.
All right, and last question. What's something you wish you knew when you were 20?
That I knew, that no one can hold me back, and it doesn't matter what anybody thinks outside of your circle of love and those that actually impact your life.
Guys, Tootris.com, helping employers help their employees find appropriate childcare so they can be more productive, especially when they're working from home. They've helped 600 children so far to date, launched in San Diego, scaling, currently serving about 100 customers. Those customers are, again, our employers using them. Hopefully each of those scaling up on average to about 60 seats, representing employers, again, employees that need childcare services. Alessandra, thanks for taking us to the top.
Thank you so much for having me.